The world, as we know it, draws lines. Real clear that the world draws lines and says, okay, you're in and you're out. And the world does that, right? The world qualifies who's good and who's not. But the church is not supposed to do that, because the church is the community of faith as God's chosen ones, as God's people, says, you're loved, and you're loved, and you're loved, and you're loved. All are loved. That's the radicality of the fire of gospel love, because all are loved. Well, the tension comes, the heartache comes, when we recognize and acknowledge that we are called to love others with our limited resources. Our limited resources financially, physically, and emotionally. Our love of all others with that limited amount of resources. And so what happens is that those who have first claim on our love feel that they get short shrift. Whether that's family, whether that's church family, or whatever that is. Those who have first claim on that love feel that they get shortchanged. And that's the tension, I believe, that separates loved ones. That's the tension that separates loved ones. And that's the tension, I believe, that separates the church even at this day and time. Now, early on, the church could figure out all kinds of different things to feud and fuss about and divide itself. I mean, the church has always been in the process of saying, well, no, you're wrong and I'm right, and, you know, the great schism, the 3 words, and the Son, you know, separated the church the first time. And then Bob talked about it at Sunday school, about the creed, and how that, you know, people fought over the person of Jesus for centuries, and there were wars waged over that kind of stuff. And so, you know, the truth is that gospel love, that radicality of that love, is what separates. That's what separates. And I thought back in terms of trying to come up with a real good example, and I think that 150 years ago in this country, it was legal to own people. Okay? 150 years ago, thank God, the Northern and the Southern Episcopal Church separated. And one of the graces that you may not know about that is that the Northern bishop, when they met, they still had chairs for all of those Southern bishops who were not present, who left some angry, some sad. The Southern Baptist Convention, I don't walk with Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention still ain't got over it. The SBC was established in 1847 to be able to rationalize slavery. And that's the bottom line. You go to the history books and look it up. Now, brothers and sisters, that's 150 years ago in this particular country. My ancestors owned slaves, okay? I'm real clear about that. I come from South Carolina. My folks immigrated to South Carolina in the 18th century. I know my relatives owned slaves. And 150 years ago, we were arguing about whether that was right or wrong, and there were people of belief and faith who said, it's absolutely right. And there were people of faith who said, it's absolutely wrong. And to me, in this day and time, that is such a travesty. That is such an injustice to think that it's okay, that it was okay to kidnap somebody from their native land, to bind them in chains, to sell them like beasts of burden. What's Christian about that? And yet, that separated families. So that's what we're talking about. And I believe that that's what Jesus is talking about, of this fire of radical Christian love. Of love and care and acceptance at all costs. Even if it alienates us from one another, that's what Jesus calls us to. And the issues that separate us today are just those. They're just those. They're issues. And there's lots of hard stuff that we fight with. issues of immigration, the issues of sexuality. All of those things are very difficult, and they separate us. But I believe that Jesus calls us beyond that. That radical fire of gospel love calls us beyond that. And I think that the thing that we have to understand is what Jesus was inviting the people of Israel and people, us today, beyond the practice of religion to truly living the gospel. How we do that in our life. In that tension because it's hard. It's hard. Jesus invites us to that love that accepts all, that cares for all, with intention. With intention. My sisters and brothers, we are called, we are invited to live the gospel in our lives. Amen.